Good evening, everyone. Not sure if this is still live because my Facebook is having a bit of a moment. Hi, Nicole. Oh, lovely. Obviously, it's still working then, which is good. Just give it a few minutes and then we'll get started. Hi, Wenche. How are you getting on with your book? Is it going well? Oh, just give it a couple of minutes. Right, you may remember when we were doing the covers, I couldn't decide which to have for the spine, and if you look here, oops, it does overlap. To be honest, I don't really like, get it the right way up. Oh, that's lovely. I don't mind that for the back, but if it had gone all the way across the spine, I might have stuck with that, but it doesn't. So what I'm going to do is find my scissors, which are somewhere on my desk. There we go. And just so it doesn't overlap too much, I'm just going to, had I planned this out in my head, I quite probably would have cut this shorter before I put the paper on. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide that underneath, get my craft knife, line it up, and trim that bit off. Oops. Oh, that's brilliant, Wenche. Now, it does just meet there. I might still put something over the top of that, but because I didn't stick that down, what I'm going to do is just lift this slightly and squirt my glue under that side, turn it round because I'm right-handed, and again just squirt the glue under there. Very, very technical. Lie it down and squirt it. and then just burnish that down, preferably without getting it all over your fingers. So I'm just going to leave that. Turn it over and just exactly the same again. A little bit of glue under there. It will slip a little bit more on the Tyvek just because the Tyvek's a slippier surface. And again, a bit under there. And just hold those in place while the glue grabs. Certainly on the Tyvek it does take a little while to grab, just because it does have a not as porous a surface. So I'm going to leave that to one side. Possibly come back to that later on tonight. Put the covers on my scissors because I caught my hands on them last week and it wasn't a good move. So tonight we're going to work on the back of page 6. So the front is just a simple pocket. So on the back of here, I forget the original book. Again, it's a simple pocket that we've put a 7x5 photo mat in. I've actually put in some little tags and 2 pockets. Sorry, 2 flaps. Okay, so flip that over, pop that out of the way. So the simple pocket, we're going to cut one at, where's my card, 8.5, I don't think, by 3 inches. Oh, what do you know? So I'm going to use an offcut of one of the pages that we've done earlier. So measure up, that's 8 inches, 8.25, keep your card straight. So that's 8.5 inches. So if I line that up, and I want this to be 3 inches wide, it's actually just a smidge over, so I'm going to line that up and cut. If I'd have realised it wasn't that much, I probably would have left that, but it's done now. Evening, Helen. So for your simple pocket, it's just our standard U-shaped pocket that we do for most of our simple pockets. So I'm going to line it up on the 8.5 inch side, and I'm going to score it at 1/2 inch and at 8 inches. I'm going to spin it around 90 degrees and score it at 1/2 inch. Oops. And then pop our scoreboard out of the way. And then I'm just going to cut up to the corner of the 2 score lines, angle the scissors slightly and cut that off. Again, up to the score lines and trim that off. So then we turn that over and I'm going to burnish the score lines down. Fluffy bit there. So just burnish those down. and again. So that then goes on the bottom of our page. Now what I'm going to do is put our door flaps on. So I need to cut two. I want to just check this. So yeah, the instructions are wrong. So on the door flaps, you need to cut two at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. So we're cutting two. Yeah. So we're going to cut at 5 1/2 inches, which is the height of our page, by 4 1/4. So again, 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. So on those short sides, we're just going to score at 1/2 inch on the 4 1/4 inch side, and the same on the other one. So I'm just going to burnish those down just to make sure it's got a really good crease, a straight edge. And the better the crease, the easier it will open for you. So I'm going to start with one of the doors. Just line that up to the edge. And just hold that in place while the glue grabs. Make sure it doesn't move. Evening Helen, evening Beth. We've actually got a little bit of blue sky at the minute, although we didn't have earlier when it threw it down. And then we're just going to put the other door on the other side, and we're just going to butt that up to where the crease line is. Keeping it straight. And there you go. So we've done those. Now when we put our pocket on the bottom, it's going to secure those down as well. I know you can still see under the flap at the minute, but once we've put our pattern paper over there, you won't see that at all. So, bit of glue on, and then just line that up. Make sure it's straight. And then your doors close and we'll just meet in the middle. Don't think you missed much on the back page. I don't think I did much on the back page, Helen, not before you arrived. It's not too bad. Pouring down. For those of you who don't know, Beth is about 4 or 5 miles away from me, and we've actually got blue sky at the moment, which is very odd that you've got thunder and lightning. So yeah, very strange. although my son works up in Oldham, and he came home the other day and was absolutely soaked. He'd got so wet, and yet we'd had no rain at all here, which was very odd. So yeah, it's not always the same, even if you are close by. Oh, my computer's having a moment. There we go. So what we need to do now, oops, definitely strange, is pop our paper on the back here. So I need to choose paper, and I'm going to go with one of the 8x8 pages. I do like that, but if I use that, most of that is going to be covered up with your photo mat, so I'm not using that one. I'm going to use this one. I'm trying to be more productive and just picking it and not worrying too much about which one I've picked. So I get my pencil. So most of the roses and the decorations on the bottom of this page, so I'm just gonna make a little mark there, and I need to cut this down to just under 7.5. So what I'm going to do is, I still want it kind of centered, so I'm just going to trim some off that side. Yeah, I'm going to trim a little bit more off that side, and then a bit from this side, just to try and keep as much of the roses pattern as I can. I wouldn't normally do this, I would just normally cut from one end of the paper, but because of the pattern on it, I just wanted to make it a little bit more centralised. So that's more to my liking. So if I just pull that over there, I'm going to trim this down to there. So I'm just going to line that paper up. Oops. And trim the bottom off. So I know now that paper is going to sit along there. So I'm going to put this paper in. Now I don't want to push it all the way down because it's going to look a bit silly. So I'm going to pull this back up to about there. So if you can see, it's not a huge amount that's hidden. And it will, not exactly, but it will match up with the flowers on the bottom. So if I just make sure that's lined up, make a mark here, and then just trim that off. So it's usually only about 1/8 of an inch or even 1/16 of an inch. So once that's in the pocket and stuck down, that's going to allow you to slide your photo mats in and out. And this pocket's annoying me, so what I'm going to do is just trim it down slightly. It's I think it's because I used the wrong bone folder, which is making it a little bit chunkier. Bone fold, yeah, I've used the bigger bone folder. So I'm just going to squeeze that with my fingers. And burnish that down in place there. So, oops, there we go. So this is the bottom part of the page, and I've just spotted, I can actually see the pencil mark, and I was going to rub it out, but my rubber's new, so I'll use this one instead. And then we're just going to get my ink tool and my Distress inks or any brown dye-based ink pad, and just ink the edges around. And then pop some glue on. And then just line that up. And there we go. And then again with this top section, just ink the edges just to get rid of that white edge that a lot of the patterned papers have, and it'll make it all blend in together with it throughout the book. So just pop a bit of glue around the edges. Remember, sometimes with glue, less is more. Although it can be tempting to put more glue on, it doesn't automatically follow that it will give you a better adherence. If you put too much glue on, it goes quite thick and it can take a long time for it to actually set or stick. So you need to just be a bit wary about that. So, oops, that page has moved ever so slightly. So now we need to decorate the front and back of our pages. Oh, what a shame. I've got an offcut there, but it's not quite big enough. So from one of my 12 by 12 pieces, I've got this section left. But if I turn it over, it's actually florals with a little bit of trellis work up there. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to use this section here. And because we've got this kind of torn, distressed edge along here, I'm going to use that corner of it. So I'm going to need to cut it about there and about there. So what I'll do is, trim off the height of it and then spin that round and trim off that edge. So that's going to go on that side there. Now, because these bricks are actually directional, what I'm going to do is trim that off and use the top part of the page, just so it doesn't intrude on that. I might actually use that bit. So it's just got that little bit along the edge. To be honest, when you're decorating, it's entirely up to you what you prefer. At the end of the day, it's your book, unless you're going to give it away. But if you prefer something different, that's entirely up to you, and you can do your book however you like. So yeah, I'm going to do it with this little bit of trellis in the bottom left hand corner, and these roses are actually going in every direction, so it doesn't matter that it was the other way up. So I'm just going to ink those edges. And I'll do it on both of them while I'm here. And no matter how many different brown ink pads I've got, I still end up going back to the same one. Just because, I don't know, I just prefer it. So again, we're just gonna pop your glue on the back of your paper. And again, just line that up. This is the good thing when you're using glue, is you do have that little bit of wiggle room. If you use double-sided tape and put it down and if it's off centre like that, that's a bit extreme. Sometimes it's difficult to pull it back up, and it can tear. Whereas if you've got glue, it doesn't set straight away. So if you do happen to put it on, if I go too extreme like that, you have got time to just wiggle it back into place. And that's the back of page 6 done. So I need something to go on here. Now right, so that will be that corner, which I haven't got on there enough of, I don't think. But what I do have are these two offcuts. So I think they were like that on the page. So I may use this one on this side, and by adding this on, you can write on there, and then again put that one on that side. So if I just mark, that one needs to be cut there. Again, you can measure it, but if you're, because of the width of your folds, I know what that should measure, but if that fold is slightly out, dependent on the width of your ball tool or your embossing tool, it is going to make it slightly different, which is just why I, rather than measure it, cut it, and then measure it again, you know, have to retrim it, I just find that a lot easier. So I can pop that one on there, make it a little bit more central. I mean, if you wanted, you could even use that side, but I'm sticking with what I chose to start with because I'm trying to be more, make a decision and stick to it, more decisive, which doesn't always work. So has anybody got any really good plans for weekend in this beautiful changeable weather that we have at the moment? Again, I want to use this corner, so I'm just going to line that up, mark off where I want to cut it, and there. So I'm just going to trim this down. And ink the edges. Pop the glue on. Line that up, make sure it's straight. So now we've got, they're not exactly the same, but they do follow on, and they are from, you know, they do give a cohesive finish to the page. Now let me just move all this out of the way. So yeah, a little bit behind with my decorating. But what I've done with the decorating, I've done all the larger pages. So a lot of things that we need to do now are just these sections, which I've got that, which doesn't really go with anything. But if I flip that over, that's actually got ivy. Yeah, ivy hanging down. I don't know if you can hear this, but the rain that Beth had about 20 minutes ago has just landed, and it is absolutely bouncing. So I'm going to ink these edges because it's about a 1/16 of an inch too wide. I'm just going to trim that down, move that over there, which is probably the width of my pencil mark. Yeah, so that's going to fit in that section there. So I've done that one. and again just pop some glue on the back. I do know of people who swear by double-sided tape for decorating their books. However, when I've gone back to some of the books that I made a few years ago, I found that the pages, the patterned paper has actually come away from the paper. So although it's had double-sided sticky tape on, sometimes the sticky tape can dry out, which means that it will just come apart, and all the work that you've done on your book has kind of gone to waste, because you need to then redo it all. Right, let's have a look. Again, that's an offcut of another page, but it will fit exactly onto there. I will just need to trim it down slightly. Or I could use that one. Yeah, I like that one because I do like that, but that's going to be hidden by our photo mat, so I'm going to put that over there. And then this one, it's still pretty, it's still nice, but once the photos are in there, you're not going to see as much of it, and I'm not that bothered that you don't see as much of that one. So put this in. Now with this one, I've not bothered inking the bottom edge because it's actually going to slide inside the pocket. So nobody's going to see it, and that's why I've not trimmed it down either. So let me glue that in place. Just slide that into the pocket, line it up, and then burnish that down. So looking at other bits of pages that I've got left now. So I still have my large sheet of that one with a really pretty rosy background on there. I love this page, but at the minute I'm not quite sure what I want to do with that, but again, I do like the back. This one, another really pretty page and quite a plain background, and the same with this one, plain-ish, but again a plainer background. This is the sheet of the tags. Now we have got a leafy background on there. I actually cut all these tags out and actually use them in the book. If you're cutting these circles out, I would recommend, if you've got a circle die cut, a circle die, try and find one and use that. Or if you cut it out and it's not quite a perfect circle, you can distress the edges with the inside of your scissors, just to rough it up a little bit so it doesn't look as odd, that it's not obviously a circle. Or you can just cut your tags off and use the leafy bit at the bottom. This page, I cut up each of the postcards, so about postcard size, and you can just slot them into your book. On the back, you could write things in. If it's pictures of your garden, sort of which month it was and which flowers they are, or you could just put excuse me, you can just stick a photograph on the back. And then again, in the smaller paper pack, you've got the same, but they are quite a bit smaller. And then everything is just reduced in size. So I've still got some of these pages left. So I'm going to, if I'm using that one there, actually, no. I'll come back to that one in a minute. I think I'm going to go with that one. So I'm just going to leave that there for now. Flip it over. Again, this is a photo mat that you can put a 3x4 photograph on there, or you can put patterned paper on there. I'm leaving it like that for now because I'm not quite sure if I'm putting a photograph or patterned paper there. Now for this one, I'm gonna trim this down from both edges so it fits on top of there, and then I might use these corner bits on the bottom as well. So that's going to go for that one. In fact, I'll do that one now. So where's my pencil? So I need about 5/8 of an inch off there. So if I trim that off, and then I need to do a bit more off the other side, just so that I keep the roses so now that is still centered even in the middle, but you've still got your roses down either side. So there's the edge, so I'm just going to trim that there. So that will then go with on the top of that flap. So again, I'm going to ink those edges. I hope everyone's still here because my Facebook's gone very quiet. So pop your blue on, line it up, and that then fits on there. So I've got most of my larger pockets done, just double checking. Now for this one, again, it's a pocket with the back. So I'm going to go again with I'm going to go with this one. Although it's going to cover the bird up. So I'm going to use this one. Now, because a lot of the detail is in this top right hand corner, I'm going to do it the opposite way, and I'm going to start at that top right hand corner because I want to keep this detail here. So I'm going to trim it down to that width. So that's then going to come in there. And the pocket, so this time, move that over there, you need to come just below the pocket. So about 1/4 of an inch. Line that up and trim it down. So once that's stuck to the top of the page, I'm going to line this up just to see, does that match up? Not quite, but it's enough. If I didn't like the way that was, I could just have put the bottom section off and cut those petals off. So I'm just going to line this up again. And then trim that down. So that's going to go nicely on the bottom of the pocket. Now, for those of you that have an envelope punch board, I think We Are Makers did one. That's the one I've got. I have a feeling Stampin' Up did one at one point. There are quite a few companies that have now brought their own versions or their own colours of the envelope punch boards out. So let me stick these down and I'll explain what I use this for more than I use it for making envelopes. So again, glue on the back. Make sure you get it the right way up. And that goes on like that. And then exactly the same with your larger piece. And again, just line it up. And then move that into place. So you need to cut your photo mat for that page as well. Make sure I've got this the right way round. So there is. Now, as well as all the photo mats that I've put the instructions for each page, move that paper out of the way, we also have, because of the way we made our pages, we also have an opening at the side of every page. So that gives us the ability to put yet more photo pockets in. So this is why I've used the envelope tab punch board. You've got your photo mat, which from the top of my head is 5 1/4 by 7 1/4. Now, it is, like I say, 5 1/4 by 7 1/4. To make this section, I would cut my cardstock down to 5 1/4, which, because we're using A4 cardstock, move these out of the way, you will get 2 out of an A4. So 5 1/4, trim that down. Now, if you've got an envelope punch board like this, you'll notice that it's got all your different sizes on to make your envelopes. It's very, very rare. It's only if I do an odd shaped card that I actually use it to make envelopes. What I tend to use it for is if I line that up to the centre here and then punch that down, it makes a shape like that. So it just gives you a nice edge. So what I then do, most of my tabs from edge to edge are 2 inches. So if I slide that over to the 2 inch mark and punch down again, we get that shape. So, but that looks a bit odd. So what I do is flip it over and I just line those 2 up and cut the other section off. So if I show you like this, line the 2 bottom bits up, and then this is the waist that we cut off. Okay, so that is the shape that it punches, but obviously it only does half of it. So I'm going to put this in the trimmer. You can use a normal a normal cutter. I just line that up and then trim that down. Now, because I'm using a guillotine, I keep an eye on it. So I've just got 1 section like that. Now, if you don't have a punch board, so again, I need 5 1/4 inches. What I would do once I've done this, because of the width of our pages, I only want this to be 7 1/4 to make sure, I'll do it on that one, that it goes into your page. This sticks out a little bit so you can pull it on the tab, but you don't want it to go beyond this crease because that's where your binding's going to be. So I'm going to do that 7 1/4, so it does mean that you can get your 7 by 5 photos on here. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1/4. I've done that the wrong way. So if I move that up to there, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 inches, so 7 1/4 is here. So you're actually measuring your 7 1/4 from this end, not the straight end. So that will then just slide in between our pages. So I would then move it, the next one, I would start my in the center of this one, so at 1 inch, and move it across. That way they overlap. If you don't have a punch board to do that, what you could do is pop your envelope in, and because we've not bound it yet, we know exactly where it's come up to. So instead of trimming this down at 7 1/4, I would trim this at 7 3/4, which is there. So if you trim that at 7 3/4, slide it in like that. That means you're going to have a 1/4 inch, half an inch at the side to be able to pull those photo mats out. And you've still got room for your photo mats. Now, if you've done it that way, what you could then do, when you finish decorating the rest of your book, is if you've got some offcuts of paper, you could just, and these are just bits that I've taken off tonight, again, ink the edges and just pop that at the side, glue that down, and then you've still got room for your 7 by 5 photograph there. It does take a little bit of getting used to with the envelope punch board, so I'm going to show you on this one. 1 2 3 4 5 6. So we started that one at 0, so I'm going to move this up to 1 inch now, and I'm just going to punch that down. So we moved it up 2 inches to get this shape. So this time, move it up 2 inches is going to take me to 1 + 2 is 3. And punch down. Now this time, again, I'll do it with my ruler and pencil so you can see. You line that up, like that, and we want to keep this middle punch, so we need to trim that and that off. Now you can do this if your hands are steady with your craft knife. What I do is I start there and just a couple of cuts through, and then again I'm going to go up to this one, that's not quite gone all the way through yet. You're better off to do lots of shallow cuts rather than one big one. And then I'm going to have to find my rubber to clean that off. So if I just rub that out, so now you can see that they overlap slightly. So if I do that with some black card, which is, let's use this one. They're my photo mats. just to give you a little bit of an idea. So I need to trim that down to 5.5, 5.25. So what I've done this time is I've worked from the other side because I wanted to move this in 1/2 inch. So that's 5.25. So I've moved it in 1/2 inch, which is 5.75, and then 2 inches, which takes it down 4.75 to 2.75. And then again, I'm just going to line this up. Flip that over and line it up again. So what this means is, get rid of those. When you pop your so that just shows 1/2 inch increments along. Now, if you, depending on how big your book is or how big you want them to be, you could just do that at 1 inch increments, and that's the sort of look it would give you. Does that make sense there? So yes, you can make envelopes with an envelope punch tool. Again, I don't, but if you're making a book, or even if you're scrapbooking and you want something with different layers on, you can just use it to do that. I've also used it to make crackers, but I might show you that nearer Christmas. You can make your own crackers with an envelope punch board. So I hope that makes sense to everyone. If not, drop me a message and I will go through it again next week. But like I say, this just gives you an incremental tab so they're not all in the same place. Next week is, we're gonna finish this off. So homework for this week is to finish decorating all your pages. Make sure for next week you have a crocodile or a hole punch, yeah, a hole puncher, something like that to punch your holes in, and I will go through how the pages are put together in the book. I will also show you with the die cuts how I've used the die cuts and where to put them, and we'll be making the book up. So you need to decorate all your pages ready for next week, finish your photo mats that are going to go inside your pages. And then I was just waiting for Helen Bedford to come on after the messages I've had this week from her, and she's not come on. So next week we'll be finishing off the House of Roses book, and that will all be finished and beautiful, and can't wait to see all your photos. The week after that, we're going to be starting the Arden Creative Studios Field Notes book, which I've just realised you can't see yet. So it's not completely finished yet, but it will be. So it's using this paper pad. It's more of a folio style than a book. This is something else you can do if you haven't got an envelope punch board, is just leave a square rectangle, maybe corner punch, put a corner punch on the edges if you like. I did this one because I wasn't at home and didn't have my punch board with me, but you can just around the edges. So that will be a waterfall that we're doing with all your to put your photos on. And then on this side, it's got pockets, it's got these pockets, and it's got a folding out section. So, like I say, it's not quite finished yet. With this one, as well as your paper pad, you will also be getting, because some of the papers are a little bit plain, there will be rub-ons and laser cuts, which I like. I'm just looking if I've got any nearby. So they're like pieces of ephemera, but they're actually already die cut for you. And not in that one. So these are the laser cuts that will come in it. And if I just get one out to show you. Oh, one of the butterflies has come out somewhere. So these are the laser cuts. So you don't have to sit and cut all these out. You literally just, if you just push from the back, they pop up and just pull out. So if you're doing, for instance, these leaves, you just pop them out. Be really gentle because they are quite fragile. But once you've done that, that is already die cut for you, so you don't have to then go in with your scissors and try and cut around those leaves. But the good thing about them is they're printed on both sides, so if you wanted that to go that way on your page, you can do that. If you think, actually no, I want it going the other way, you just turn it over. So for things like this blue flower, it will fold, it will go one way, but if you want it to go the opposite direction for the whatever your paper is, so let me just pop this out. So if you wanted to put it on there, if it's too long, you can just trim it down. And you might think, actually, it doesn't look right there. And if I put it on that one, again, it's kind of going the wrong way. But if you flip it over, you could then layer it up here. And that's the same with all of your pieces. So if you've got a butterfly and you want a butterfly going the other direction, you just turn it over on the back, which I don't know about anyone else, but sometimes you get a butterfly and it's just facing the wrong direction and it doesn't look right if you twist it. So that's one of the sets of laser cuts that you get. And the other set which is upside down, which I've already used the ladders from. So you get a set of ladders there, tickets, different sorts of tickets, a window frame. These are ticket shaped, ticket edged, but they are actually like a little Polaroid. So the old-fashioned Polaroid, you can put a picture behind that. Again, these just pop out. And on the back of those, so here it says, remember the stories, new experiences, enjoy the moment, take the photos, and surrounded by love. But if you turn those over, what you'll find is the tickets are then blank on the back. So here you could put your own sayings on them. That's just got a bit of a ticket and a butterfly on. If you don't like that, or it's not fitting with what you want, you turn it over and you can just make your own tickets there. Again, these are just blank on the back. Your window frame is going to be the same whichever direction. And again, these stamps down the middle here are all blank on the back, so you can put whatever you want on. You can colour them if you want one, and it's not that it's like an off-white and it's not the right colour for where you want it to go. You can actually colour it with your inks, so you can match it into whichever page. So for instance, you wanted a stamp, but that red doesn't go with this green. So what you could do, that it doesn't really fit with the green. I mean, I wouldn't just put it there. So if you turn that over, you can then ink that with either a blue or a yellow, just to make it fit in with your layout a little bit better, which I think is amazing for what you're getting with these. Again, you could put your floral thing there, and you could put that like that, or what you might want to do is turn that one over and layer it up so they go in the same direction. Like I say, the possibilities with this are endless, and I really do have to rein myself in with these. So yeah, Helen asked me to show the book again, but it looks like she's waylaid with the children doing children things. So this, if it's not already live in the shop, it will be going live shortly. So as well as them, you get rub-ons, which you can see I've already used one. And again, really, really beautiful rub-ons. Some rice papers, which I will go through using those, and again I've used them. And that's your other set of rub-ons, and they are so easy to use. You just literally cut around them and rub them on, but I will do that in more detail. I don't think you'll need more detail, but we'll go through that when we make the book. So as I say, those, if they're not live in the shop now, they will be live in the next few minutes, because they should be. Just put this back and I don't lose it. So yeah, so that'll be the new, it's a folio rather than a book, but that just means it's got more flexibility in the spine, although I did get a little bit over generous with the spine. So even when you put your papers, your photos in, it could end up a really big book, but I might just shorten that spine slightly because it doesn't need to be that big. So yeah, I am now off to bed, as I have to be up really early in the morning. Going down to Bristol for a weekend full of scrapbooking, playing and just generally crafting with like-minded people. So have a wonderful time, have a lovely weekend, and I shall see you all back here next Wednesday, and we'll finish the House of Roses book off, and then you can all astound me with your books and photos of your books in the group. Have a lovely weekend. See you all soon. Bye.